I think love is driven by a curiosity, and the curiosity is really about yourself and seeing yourself in different ways and in ways that bring new eyes to who you are. And I feel like love is generous that way. You can change because it feels so refreshing to change. Wow, I can be something new, and that's just invigorating.
Welcome to season 2 of Are We Our Work? We are your co-hosts. I am Nadia Patel. I'm an artist, I'm a designer, and I'm joined by Kimo Bosiello.
Hi,
Sorry. Cut. I'm gonna start again.
Go ahead.
And I am joined by the wonderful
Kimo Busiello. I work in public relations and reflect often about personal relations.
And we are going to take you on an interesting journey through season 2.
How does season 2 work, Nadia?
Wait, we're not there yet.
Oh, we're not.
Well, season 1, firstly.
Yes,
so season 1 of Are We Our Work gathered and shared people's career experiences. And what's different is season 2 is centered around questions of love, relationships, and work. Today's episode is titled Roomies. Have you ever had a roommate?
I have, and I 0 out of 10 recommend it.
Yeah, same. Are you the annoying one, or are you the easy one?
I am the annoyed.
You are the annoyed.
Yeah, I am the irritable, passive-aggressive one.
Yeah. Do you ever passive-aggressively vacuum the apartment?
No, I'll leave it.
That.
I'll leave it and then passively-aggressively clean my own room and the kitchen and leave a mess in the TV room.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting conversation because I guess everyone has a very different version of living with a friend. So here's what happened. Tiffany, the founder of Are We Our Work as a research project,
the brains of Are We Our Work,
interviewed Yumna Martin and Lesedi Mogoatlhe.
And who are Yumna and Lesedi?
Yumna is a socio-economic development consultant. And Lesedi is the host and editorial director of the Radio Workshop podcast at the Children's Radio Foundation. Two very interesting people. And what they explore in this conversation with Tiffany is it's a conversation on friendship, on work, on boundaries, on anxieties, and how to navigate change and evolution within a partnership, a friendship, a roommateship, a kind of living together, working together situation. So how to navigate change as you yourself evolve and change. So let's listen, and then if you stick around, after the interview, I sit down and interview Tiffany about the conversation. Yeah.
All right.
Enjoy.
Do you remember the first moment you met?
Can't actually remember, but I think I might have been a bit like okay, let me check this person out first. But I think I was a very cautious person then as well. And you were very free-spirited, which was something that I really... I think I am free-spirited, but I really rein it in quite often. So it was amazing, like just such a full life that she had already lived when we were, 27 then.
Do you have any reflections from those early days?
We were working really hard because we loved what we were doing and we loved the people that we were doing it with. We were literally like a family.
Yeah.
It was the first time, I don't think I've ever had that, where you would work all day together and then you would also spend your weekends socializing together. We were just like in each other's lives.
Yumna's accurate to describe it as familial in that sense. You know how family is. Very close, and there's like this almost unconditional love, and we'll do anything for each other. And having meals together and having our personal lives completely enmeshed with our work lives. We knew everything about each other, calling each other out. Family style. Yes. Very natural progression. Yes. But then in a workspace, it's like,
not functional.
It's not functional.
Can you take me through what that experience was like?
It was heartbreaking, actually. It was, yes, natural progression towards like calling each other out, families that we haven't set boundaries with. So we were moving towards that, but we were also growing really quickly as an organization. And we didn't have proper resources. We didn't have an HR system in place.
Became almost like a culture of everyone, almost like a family business, and put family first.
I thought I had found the job that I would do for the rest of my life. So it was also like a letting go of what I thought work would be for me.
In what ways were you right about that job being a dream job? And in what ways were you quite like abruptly or harshly surprised that it isn't?
Content-wise, I still think that it's a dream job. Just because what really shifted me in my life was being mentored and the people and experiences I had. What I've realized is not a dream job, which I thought then is how I give myself to work. That was the beginning of me realizing how I give myself to work is different to what I think it should be. It's different from like my lineage. I need to change even if it's something I love, I need to change how I give of myself to work. Yeah, I give everything to work.
But I guess at that point also that was just generally who you were.
Yes.
You gave everything to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
I'm interested that you linked that to your lineage. Why is that link a clear link for you?
Like I look at my father, he started working when he was like 16. Like I've grown up in a household that's work orientated, people pleasing orientated. That's also culture and worth, coming from where we are the first, my sisters and I are the first generation to have a degree. Like my mother wasn't able to finish even high school. Like, it's a huge, this like way of showing worth.
All of what you're saying is big reasons why I formulated season 1. I just would like you to reflect a little bit more on how you are thinking about work or have had to shift, but from your parents in particular. What did they give you that you are grateful for and that you still hold on to? And what are you having to force yourself to almost disagree with and move in a different direction to?
I'm really grateful for the work ethic that they installed in me. I think it's incredible to have that kind of detail and passion and in the way in which you work. I think maybe what I'm trying to undo is not to work for survival and what that looks like. It's mixed. It's like a mixed thing for me because it's the first time in my life that I am not, I don't know how to explain it, like financially empowered. I've never been this financially empowered, but I still don't know how to relax into that. I don't know what that looks like. So I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
I think Yumna and I come from similar backgrounds in terms of the work ethic or work values around working all the time, can't be idle at any point, affirmed by the quantity of work you're doing and how much you're able to accomplish. Yeah, we both just have this inclination towards being the prefect.
Who is the prefect?
The prefect is that archetype of the individual pleasing towards authority, follows the rules, gets things done, perfectly put together and doesn't really stress or doesn't have outwardly showing stress.
The duck. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Underneath the feet are just like moving, but outside. Exactly. I'm a beautiful Egyptian geese.
There are obviously things we like and the things we don't like. You're saying the things you like is that hardworking.
So like kick-ass.
Kick-ass, okay.
True.
Yeah.
But at the cost of concealing feelings and people-pleasing, you don't like that.
Yeah, you have to compartmentalize. Even though you've got like a bleeding wound in your back, you just cover it with your blazer. Make sure no one sees the blood dripping.
And so you both identify as prefects, whether you were or weren't in high school. You're saying that in a work context, at least that first work experience, you behaved like prefects.
Looking back now, I was young. And I think actually it was my inability to say how I felt. That was the issue. actually.
And that, related to what Yumna was saying, is something inherited from our family, culture within our family. You don't say, I'm feeling like this, I wouldn't do this. You just do what has to be done if you want to keep the peace in the house. I think we brought that into our workspace.
Which I think is what happens with a lot of people, whether they know it or not, whether they're consciously aware of it or not.
That our workplaces play out as family households.
Or family dynamics, power dynamics, and we learn power dynamics in our family. That's the first place you start to learn it.
I'm curious about why you guys chose each other to live together with. Why did she become your roomie?
I mean, I started calling Lesedi my wife.
I'm not your wife, and I'm not your wife. I don't know. Yumna and I just feel like sisters. And when we met, there was like this unspoken contract that we would just love each other through anything. I didn't have a choice but to love her or be with her or support her.
What were your disagreements and your arguments like when you were living together?
Well, we both share like passive-aggressive tendencies and approaches to how we get through conflict.
Can you give me an example?
I could feel that we are in conflict sometimes. So we would just like avoid each other and not talk. But, we'd still show up for each other and be like, there's food in the fridge.
I made beans.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
And why would you say you worked as roommates, housemates, sharing a physical space?
I think because we would be passive aggressive and then we would be like, and usually I think it was you that said, you'd be like, yo, sort this out. And then we would talk about it and it would be fine. But I also think that what Lesedi said about like the contract that we never even knew we signed is that we both always know we will show up for one another. It's like having a sibling. Like your sibling can be a real shitty person sometimes, but if that person calls you and says, I'm not okay, you will drive there and you will be there for them.
It's okay to have a lot of space in our closeness.
Have you had a fight where it felt like, oof, this could break us?
We've had distance that feels like, oh, we're apart right now.
Tell me about those distant moments.
We have them because Yumna's a bad communicator. Out of sight, out of mind. But you're in my heart. Yumna's living her life and I know how she is.
What was the discomfort with her not communicating in the way that you would have liked?
Her distance or her being away, sometimes it made me feel like, oh, maybe I don't matter in her life anymore. There's someone else who sort of filled my place. So it would feel like that. But that wasn't just with Yumna, you see. So then I would understand that it's me.
Do you remember a time where you felt hurt by Lesedi or offended in such a way that you thought, maybe I don't want to be friends with this person?
No, I've never thought, no, I don't want to be friends with this person. I mean, there have been moments where we had to have difficult conversations and then it's difficult to have those conversations.
I mean, I've lost a friendship because we moved in together. And it's made me think that I never want to test that ground again. And I'm wondering what you would say to someone like me.
We always say that the friendship breakup cuts deeper than any sexual, intimate partner breakup. Yeah. And we've both gone through those dynamics.
Do you think friends that break up were always destined to break up?
That would have been my thing. For me, it feels like that's what was supposed to happen. That is just the course of your friendship.
I want to know what those moments of distance feel like for you. So Lesedi clearly articulated that she's moved from feeling insecure about those periods to now accepting and acknowledging that she can't take it personally and that it is also in some ways your nature to just live your life and sometimes feel like you're doing that with blinders on. But in those moments of silence or absence or distance, what's the narrative in your mind?
Well, if I think like now living in Japan, and because I'm out of sight, out of mind, but deeply in my heart kind of person. And like I'm laughing saying that, but that's literally how I function. And then I become very lonely. So it's like a strange thing where actually if I just reached out, I wouldn't feel lonely, but I don't know how. And that maybe also stems from never asking for support. It's also a coping mechanism for me. I need to, as you said, blinders, like I'm here, I need to do this, I need to get through this. But then it obviously is very lonely.
It's like we're rehab friends when we're in the darkness.
This rehab friends, or consciously and directly seeing your own flaws in your person, what's healthy about that? It sounds like a recipe for toxicity. And yet you're saying that there's a bit of a healing quality to it, at least from my interpretation.
I mean, it's funny because like our codependency, if you want to name it that, and like extending ourselves doesn't play out between us. We do it with other people and then recognize it in each other and like almost rein each other in to be like, oh, dude, you're doing that thing again. That's the healthy bit about it. It's because you recognize the addiction. It's like having a sponsor. You sit with them and you go, dude, remember what we need to be heading towards. You are going to the dark side. And then I guess the unhealthy bit of it is that we also can indulge the addictions when one of us is maybe not in the healthiest space. So we have had moments where we have just allowed ourselves to be in the dungeon together, doing things that are destructive and sabotaging of stuff, and being like, oh, friend, we'll get through it.
So enabling each other.
Yeah.
I mean, relationships aren't just fairy tales. So you experience your friend going through all different things. I think that what we're speaking about, our addictions, plays out in our relationships. I mean, for me, I don't know if it's the same, but I feel like boundaries disappear when there are no boundaries and there is just like I give everything to you dynamic. And what it means to be able to either leave someone because there's not acceptance of you in your understanding of your addictions and how you do not want to be in an enabling relationship, and also what it means to be in a relationship where you acknowledge that and then work through it together. And what has happened over the years is us becoming recovered addicts in a relationship.
The point at which you guys had to have the conversation about moving out and not living with each other anymore. Why did it come up? How did it happen? What did it feel like?
It was time to move on. Yeah. And everything was kind of pushing us in that dynamic. I stopped cleaning.
She stopped cleaning. She stopped being part of the household.
Yes, I stopped being part. I checked out.
She checked out.
Rent was a bit expensive.
Rent was getting a bit expensive. I wasn't sure I really wanted to get a job per se. And so we were both checking out in different ways. Yeah. It was like, okay, you've got someone, go nest somewhere. You'll have a home. I know you'll be fine. Because Yumna's from Cape Town, from Joburg. So I'm fine, I just decided to actually go home.
We both lived a very full lives when we were younger. Yeah, I think getting older has changed. Being 38, 39, that's the change. And when we want to have fun, we do. We can have that fun again. Like it's not something that we feel has ended. That's how I feel, at least. Yeah, I don't feel like it's ended.
Faint lines, hard lines. I wrote it as it's the difference between drawing a line with a 4H pencil or a 6B or a permanent marker. How do we deal with permeability in boundaries, in friendships, in relationships, work relationships?
Yeah. Yumna's one of her big realizations from back to her first work experience to now is back then she gave everything of herself to work, but also to everyone. And so had no boundaries. That sits with me, how she's saying, I used to think that I should give everything because that's the way of loving. That's the form of expressing my gratitude, love, and appreciation for whatever I'm meant to give to. And then them talking about how to give so selflessly and so endlessly is not healthy in that it doesn't preserve whatever you need for yourself. I'm taking that as something that lines do need to be drawn. And then your question about, well, how thick is the line? Look, me as a person and my personality, I'm a permanent marker kind of girl. It's not always healthy. It's worked against me, especially romantically, in quite difficult ways. So if Yumna is someone who works more with an eraser than any kind of marking, I'm the extreme opposite. And so it's helpful for me to learn from people like Yumna, to learn about what it means for her and I to find our way to the middle. The change thing and the not so hard line thing are similar to me, right? Because it's, you draw a line because you want to in some way direct an intention. It's putting a stake in the ground. The point of being a human is to remain like sturdy, but also to move with the wind. They talk about how the reasons they've been able to stay friends for such a long time is because sometimes they have space in their love. Not always welcome. And I really appreciate how Lesedi opened up about how insecure she used to feel when Yumna would just stop talking to her because they wouldn't be geographically in the same place. And that would leave Lesedi feeling insecure about what her position in Yumna's life is. But she also knows that the space in the relationship is important because the love is still there. So how do you develop this confidence about the love that you share when the interaction has really died down? They don't always have to be together around one another and in dialogue all the time for their love to stay alive. It's not always like that. There's so many friendships I've had where once we stop, it's actually over.
There's this constant moving between so many versions of how they come together. There are 4 relationships.
Yeah.
In essence, in one household. And something that I wondered, when do you switch off which version of your relationship in order to be present in another version of it? So when do you switch off your work relationship in order to be there for someone as a friend? When do you switch on the kind of colleague voice or the I'm checking in on you, this is rehab voice? That's a very complex thing to navigate. It's not so simple.
Dance.
It's a dance.
Yeah. Because if we think of literal dancing, you dance with a partner until someone steps on the other person's toe, and then you start again. Like, whether the song is over or not, it's, sorry, I got the move wrong, can we start again? I think what they got right, or get right, is that they are able to withstand conflict. So they go through cloudy, overcast weeks where, and I love it, they reference, I made beans, there's food in the fridge.
Still do care about you and you will eat.
And maybe it's that, Nadi. Maybe it's their ability to not give up when they get into conflict.
Leading into conflict. You painted a beautiful image for me of like, as humans, we can't just stand rigid when the wind is blowing. Because actually, if you try to stand too rigid, you will topple over, right? You need to sway. And I wondered how, if you could speak a little bit about engaging with conflict, leaning into conflict, in relation to the conversation.
I appreciated that Yumna admitted that they have their passive aggressive spells, and then it's often Lesedi who's like, yo, let's sort this out. Sometimes we need to be pushed or pulled into conflict because it's just not a natural desire to want to lean in. But you surprise yourself at how well you can resolve or manage once you are in it. I don't know if it's always possible to muster up the will within ourselves by ourselves. And that's why relationships are quite special, because it's given how you are in relation to another human that sometimes you're going to be pulled into a storm that was coming, is coming, should be confronted, but you've been evading or you've successfully managed to evade thus far. That's the benefit of conflict. It's this really horrible thing, but you grow from it, I believe. Oh, I feel so conflicted about conflict.
Well, I certainly haven't, and I picked this up from Yumna and Lesedi as well, is not having enough of a vocabulary or not understanding all the various ways to love. But that they, in their friendship, in their relationship, in their colleagueship, they start to explore various ways to love. They start to learn and teach each other new vocabularies for love. Whose versions of love do we follow? What tools and vocabularies do we build our understandings of love and relationships on? And what do those tools or lacks of tools therefore allow or deny us?
Yeah, you put that beautifully. and so did they. And this is, I think, where it really matters who you open up your life to, the kinds of people that you become friends with, because it's through people that we learn about the deficits in our love and also about the opportunities around how else to love. And without surprising humans that come in the form of relationships in our lives, where else is the testing ground? It has to be on each other. But that way of thinking or saying gets to or gets at is, thank you for giving me a chance to learn about myself in relation to you.
Are We Our Work is an independent research project and podcast anthology series centered around questions of love, fulfillment, relationships, identities, and work, co-hosted by Nadira Patel and myself, Kimubu Cielo. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Ibrahim, sound design by Joao Orekia, music by Vuma Levine, illustration by Softwork Studio, and web design by Sky Quadlin. To stay up to date with the projects, check out @Are We Our Work on Instagram.
It's not goodbye. Come back next week as we explore more ideas on love, on work, on relationships. Ciao. Sorry.